Good morning.
Good morning.
After Jody introduced me this morning with that flowery introduction, Karen, my sweetheart, turned to me and said, are they talking about you? I am Lou Longmire. Good morning. And I am a member of the Unity Golden Valley organization. So Reverend Pat, Reverend Patty, Reverend Jeanette all say hello. Good morning. And I was born in North Dakota. I was born in Devil's Lake. I like to say it's the hub of Western civilization. And my father, who was a medical doctor, decided he was tired of snow up to his armpits, and he moved the family down to San Diego. So I had that culture shock of going from Devil's Lake, North Dakota, to San Diego, California. And grew up most of my life in Southern California, and then came back up here. Part of my family was up here. And I can remember flying in. I would come up during the summers to go fishing and so on with my big brother, who was always up here. And I remember flying into the airport in August and July and looking out and seeing this lush green lakes and river. I mean, it looked like Brazil. Because remember, I was coming from San Diego. And if any of you have been to San Diego in August, it's brown and dead and burned. So coming here in the summertime was quite a treat. By the way, just by way of continuing to introduce myself, I love to look up people's names. I love to try to figure out what names mean, and I'm a Google freak. I love to go on the Google. When I was a kid, my dad, when I would ask him how you spell something, he'd throw the dictionary in my lap and he'd say, look it up. And of course the response is, how do you look it up if you don't know how to spell it? Well, I learned. But for example, Peggy is this wonderful angel up here who has sort of been my contact with you, and I learned about Peggy, the name Hendrickson. If I understand correctly, Henrik means the king of the home in Germanic, and son, somewhere back in the lineage, there was a son of Heinrich, and that's where Heinrich's son comes from. And Peggy, of course, comes from Margaret, and you think, how does that work? Well, Margaret is Greek for pearl, and Peggy comes from pearl. Pearl, yes. Yes. My mother was Norwegian, and both of her folks came from the old country, and they came from this place called Norfjord, about a 20-mile-long fjord in the coast of Norway, in a little village called Naustdal, which means fjord valley lined with boathouses. I mean, doesn't that sound like a Thomas Kincaid painting? You can almost see the mist and the water, you know? Well, my father's last name, Longmire, has a little bit different meaning. That's English, and it means big mud hole. Longmire. So now you know I can't have any heirs because you're listening to a guy whose name is Big Mud Hole. If you don't mind, I'm one of those guys who sweats if it's over 60 degrees. So I'm going to get comfortable, and please do the same. Kick your shoes off, and we're going to have ourselves a good time here. Well, I'm getting emotional now. I'm in the middle of a struggle, and I want to share it with you. And there may be some of you who are having that same struggle. And it has to do with my perception of what God is. Not even so much what God is, but how do I frame this concept of higher power, God. I grew up a Lutheran, North Dakota, of course, and I would bet that probably most of the people in this room grew up either Catholic, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, Jewish, Muslim. You know, you came from some traditional religious background, and you find yourselves in this incredible new thought environment, as did I. So I grew up with God is the old white man with the big beard and the big gold G on his chest with the robe sitting in the chair over in the corner, and he's really mad at you, you know? That's the image that I grew up with. And the references are always he. He loves you. He doesn't love you. He likes it. He wants it when you do this or do that. And even as a young man, there was something about that just didn't work for me, because we're talking about this grand, incredible, ethereal creator of the universe, and you're trying to tell me that there's a cloud floating around? It never worked. So even to this day, when I talk to people in the New Thought movement and they say, well, God loves you, what? There's this voice in the back of my mind that it just doesn't work for me. So I've been in a struggle to try to define for myself what God is, what is higher power, and I just recently was sharing with Karen. I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm right here with you. Higher power? Higher power? That means you're a lower power? We have this beautiful home on Lake Minnetonka. It's actually an apartment, but I say it's a great big home on Lake Minnetonka. It's this wonderful little one-bedroom apartment right on the water. We open up our sliding glass door, and there's the lake, the channel in front of our house, and it's lush and it's green and the fish are jumping and there's a beaver's lodge across the channel and loons and herons. I mean, it's the Garden of Eden is what it is. It's right there. And there's this big gorgeous tree right in front of the window. And I was sitting there the other day thinking of this higher power, lower power, grand God idea. And this thought came over me that it isn't so much, in my view, this works for me, it may not work for you. It's not so much a concept of higher, lower, but big, this grand, immense, divine energy that is flowing through the universe and has since the clock started ticking, of which I am a little tiny part, as are you. We're all part of that tapestry. Think of a tapestry on the wall. A beautiful piece of art. Well, there's nothing that's higher or lower. It's all this grand picture, and there's one little tiny stitch that may represent you. So I started to work with that, and it's been a real struggle, and a struggle for me to clarify what it all means. Beginning of the year, I joined a 12-step program, Overeaters Anonymous. Been on diets my whole life, as probably some of you have. Lost weight, gained weight. I've lost 5,000 pounds, I'm sure. So I joke that I was a member of Jenny Craig, and I used to get by the little meals that they have. Loved them. Eat 5 at a time. They were great. But one of the steps in Overeaters Anonymous, one of the 12 steps, is number 3. I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as we understand Him to be. Oh, there it is again, Him. So, and I shared this with my sponsor about this whole, because part of the 12-step thing is really giving your life over. You're not in control. It's not you. It's your ego. It may be that part of you, but there's a bigger power. There's a more grand divinity that really you're a part of, and why not allow that flow to be the one that's working for you? As part of step 11, I read just last night when I talked to my sponsor about this very talk. We constantly remind ourselves that we are no longer running the show. Oh, such a relief. We humbly say to ourselves many times each day, Thy will be done. And then, of course, in Unity, Karen and I have been pretty active members of the Unity organization in Golden Valley. The whole Unity, the Unity concepts are all about prosperity and abundance and getting in connection with God and making that connection back with your divine source. So I keep hearing this message. I keep being given the opportunity to learn about what God is and what it means in my life and what abundance in this incredible, lavish world that we live in means. We also have taken the prosperity and abundance classes at Unity. Some of you have probably taken Mary Morrissey's classes, the 4 T's. And there's another one that we were just talking about, Keys to the Kingdom. We're in the middle of Keys to the Kingdom right now. It's David Owen Ritz out of Florida. If you have the opportunity, take it. If you don't have that class signed up, I'd encourage you guys to somehow figure out a way to get it here. It's amazing. He's in front of his church organization in Florida. There must be 1,000 people in the room. And it's just a recording, 7 different weeks of him sharing this talk, and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. But in that series, I keep getting that message. Go back to your source. It's not about you. Release, relax, let go, let God. And then, of course, there's my sweetheart, Karen. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is my fiance, Karen. She is a fearless explorer in the world of her own personal spirituality. And she's been reminding me of this phrase that we've heard in Keys to the Kingdom, and you've heard it, I'm sure you've heard it. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. You know, you can have this, you can have that, you can go here, you can do whatever you want to do, but the first order of business in your life is to seek the kingdom of heaven. Seek God and the righteousness of that kind of a lifestyle. Handle that, and everything else will be added. And I get that message from all these different sources, including my sweetheart. And last night, I'm not kidding you, last night, I was working on this talk, and I got an email from a friend, a Toastmasters friend of mine. It was one of those emails that you probably get that, says, read this, pass it on to 30 of your friends, one of those kinds of things. The first line in big, bold letters, I am God. I'm not kidding you, I got that. I am God. And then it said, all I want is your attention for 2 minutes today. I can't escape this. It's like haunting me, this thing about connecting with God. And the email said, all I'm looking for is for you to connect with me for a couple of minutes a day. That's it. That's all. Heaven is probably going to be a pretty empty spot because there aren't a lot, this is what the email said, there aren't a lot of people who are doing this, but all I'm asking for is a couple of minutes a day to reconnect. Well, it is about letting go. It is about getting back in touch with your divine source, your all-encompassing divine flow. And it's not about the ego. This has been my struggle. And maybe that's why I'm having such a struggle, is I know any of you who know me think that I'm a loving, kind, wonderful, incredible example of humanity, and that is true. But I also, tucked away back here, have a ego about twice the size of that pea. And it's well hidden, but it's there. And it flares its ugly head every day. I have to remind myself, and there are probably some of you, I see some heads nodding in here, that I'm not alone in this. It's a constant reminder and movement, and I'm not there yet. That's part of my struggle. As a keynote speaker, I love giving talks about friction in relationships. That's one of the keynote topics that I have is human husband and wife, significant other relationships. There's always going to be friction, and it may be just some little silly little thing, or it may be a relationship rending event, but daily you have these little flare-ups that might happen. There may be some of those that are going to be occurring in the car on the way home from church today with some of you. I don't know. But imagine some little silly thing. And Karen doesn't know I'm going to tell this story, but I'll do it quickly. We're going to have one of those talks on the car on the way home today, I'm sure. Separate cars. Smart, by the way. A few years ago, we made a deal. Karen loves to cook. She goes and buys food. She's an incredible cook. She's a very health-conscious yoga instructor, not a vegan, but a vegetarian. And she's incorporating meat in her diet now, but blah, blah, blah. Very health-conscious, very physical fitness conscious, and treats me that way too. She shops for me, and I'm living in the lap of luxury. But she's not necessarily a housekeeper. So here's the agreement that we had. I'm getting a look right now. Here's the agreement that we had. We're going to draw the line in the kitchen right across the divider between the kitchen and the rest of the house. The kitchen is yours. You cook, you destroy the kitchen, do whatever you want to do, I don't care. You clean it up. Of course, that's the agreement that I thought we made. That's my hallucination. You clean it up. The whole rest of the house, I'll Lysol the bathtub. I'll clean the windows. I'll vacuum. I'll straighten stuff up. I'll pick junk up around the house that you deposited. Anything, I don't care. I'll take care of the whole rest of the house. You clean the kitchen. Well, issue with the definition of the word clean. What Karen has done in the past, and what happened on this particular day, was as I said, she devastates the kitchen. So here's the kitchen counter with all this stuff on it. She gets the sponge, wets it, and just kind of redistributes the piles. Maybe cleans a little up, but when it dries, if you rub your hand across it, you feel the bumps. Well, on this particular day, it got to me. I got really frustrated and really angry, and I wanted to bring this up to her, and she was gone working. And she came home, and it was Sunday night, and we usually have our family home discussions on Sunday night, and I was going to share this with her, and we were going to talk it out. Doesn't that sound civil? So she came home, and we had our usual business meeting, checkbooks and what's your weekend be like and blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, we kind of put things away and we look at each other and say, okay, is there anything we need to talk about? And I said, well, yes. And I presented this to her, and I said, I really have an issue with the kitchen not being clean. The kitchen counters are not clean. She erupted. She started yelling and crying, and the emotions were running high, and I started yelling and crying, and she slammed her hand down on the table, and she called me a counter-Nazi. She called me a counter-Nazi. And it just flaming and firing and blah, 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 and then that settled down, and it got a little quieter, and we were crying, and we were getting emotional, and then the truth came out. And the truth really is and was, in my work, I don't want to be, I daylight as a inspector in the construction business. That's what I do. I moonlight as this. This is my passion. This is what I love to do. This is where my heart lies. This is where I belong. But that's what I do for the time being, to daylight. And I don't like it. And I was frustrated. And I was frustrated with myself that I hadn't furthered my business, furthered my ambition to talk to you folks. And so I'm losing control. I'm not in control of my life. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, if I'm not going to be in control of that, then damn it, I'm going to control the kitchen countertops. Thank you. I didn't say it had to make sense. I'm just saying that's what's going on in this monkey mind, ego, me mind. Well, what she brought to the table was her history of not being told what to do, and not as good as, and better than, all her junk. So there we are, my junk arguing with her junk, not the truth. But after about 15 or 20 minutes on the sofa, crying and talking to each other, we realized, the reason I'm telling you this story is, the God energy came into the room, the truth, the divine reality entered the room, and that was that my historical stuff bashed into her historical stuff, and that's what created that particular friction. So that was really the truth of the situation. And we did come to a resolution. The resolution is I'm cleaning the kitchen counters. You folks are all New Thought. You're here because this is a New Thought organization. And that means, I think the difference for me, what that means, my understanding anyway, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but this is my hallucination. Traditional religions see God as exterior, and you work to do whatever you do with that God. I think that New Thought philosophy is that the divine energy, the God energy, is everything, including you. It's a subtle difference. It's really so subtle. I have a sister who's a born-again Christian, and to get into discussions with her, I really have to couch this by saying there's a subtle, tiny little difference between our philosophies that's this big if you look at it one way, but it's the universe if you look at it the other way. It's insurmountable. But I know that you're New Thought people. So knowing that, I know that when you read the Bible, you understand, I think, that most of the Bible, if not all of the Bible, is allegory. It's metaphor. I Googled. Allegory. As a literary device, an allegory, in its most general sense, is an extended metaphor Allegory has been used widely throughout history in all forms of art, largely because it can readily illustrate complex ideas and concepts in ways that are comprehensible or striking to its readers. Writers typically use allegories as literary devices or as rhetorical devices that convey hidden meanings through symbolic figures, actions, imageries, or events, which together create the moral or spiritual meaning that the author wants to convey with that in mind. Think the book of Genesis, 2nd chapter, the story of the Garden of Eden. Got it? God creates all this incredible stuff, creates man, creates a place for man. And by the way, in the Bible, it does say, to the east is a place called Eden, east of Eden. So here's this incredible garden, this incredible, lush, lavish universe in which man, woman live. Anything and everything you need, anything and everything you want, including the connection with the Creator. You're living in that one universal connection. It's beautiful. It's Eden. You couldn't want for anything. Do you have an occasional trouble issue? Is there something that flares up? Of course, it always does. But because you're living in the bosom of God, you're living in your relationship with the divine, nothing is insurmountable. You're in Eden. But in the middle of that garden, there are two trees. The tree of life, which is full of fruit. Eat all you want. That's what you're there for. But also in the middle of the garden is another tree. That's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't touch that tree, because if you do, surely you will die. That's what it says. Metaphorically speaking, follow me on this now, this is again my hallucination, not yours, that what happened and what the author was writing about is that we live in this incredible Garden of Eden. Karen has a nephew right now, a grandnephew who's 2 years old. You can see the God in this little creature. He doesn't care. He has no ego. It's beautiful. He's living with God. He's in the garden. But then this thing called the ego starts to fly. I can do it better. I know how to do it better. And I don't know why. That's another part I'm struggling with that I got to study. Maybe some of you know the answer to it. But why is it that we decide we can do it better? Why is it that we fall out of the garden and try to do it on our own? I don't know the answer to that, but that's what happens. And I believe that's what the story of the Garden of Eden is all about. It's the falling away from that relationship with the Creator. When we think about these prosperity classes at Karen, the prosperity class is on my mind right now because we're right in the middle of it. It's the Keys to the Kingdom class. He talks about that almost constantly, about getting back in touch with this lavish, abundant universe that we live in. And really, in truth, it is amazingly abundant. The universe is just replete with anything and everything that you could possibly want. Most of us are blind to that. Most of us are ignorant of the connection that we have waiting for us. But it doesn't mean that it's not there, the abundance. And it's all given freely. It's all there for you. It's waiting for you to take hold. It's like going to Leo Buscaglia used to say that life is like a big smorgasbord. You can come and you can have the steak and the potatoes and the pie and the chicken, you can have the whole thing. You can pile your plate full. Or you can just have, a tomato and walk away. It's up to you. It's all there. It's available. There are two issues that I want to discuss with you. One of them is fact, and one of them is truth. Imagine, if you would, just close your eyes for just a second. Work with me here. Just close your eyes. Imagine in this very room we're sitting right now, we close the windows. We hire a crew to come in to put black paper, crepe paper, over each one of the windows. So it totally blacks out the room. And then we have somebody come in with a roll of duct tape, sealing up all of the little light leaks. They tape up every single light leak. Absolutely no light makes it into the room. It's pitch black. Totally, totally black. You can't see the fingers in front of your face. If you stood up to take a walk, you'd stumble in a second. You have that vision? Completely black. That's the fact. The fact is, your truth is, in your presence, it's completely black. It's completely dark. You'd stumble in a second. Can't see a darn thing. The greater truth is right outside the window. It's brilliant, bright, gorgeous, life-giving sunshine and a world that is lavishly abundant with life waiting for you to experience it. Your truth is that you're in a dark room. The fact is you're in a dark room. Can't argue that. You're absolutely right. But the greater truth is there is a light, lavish world right outside the window. That little lesson is an example of how we think about the concept of abundance. Oh, it's not for me. I can't. I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy. I just live this life making this money and blah, blah, blah. And I'll just, retire at 58 or 70 or whatever it happens to be. But the truth is, the greater truth is, we live in this spectacularly lavish world, this abundant world, and it's really up to us to figure out how to tap into that. Lastly, I want to share with you David Owen Ritz's 7 spiritual truths of abundance. And you will be taking notes on this, so I'm going to be testing you. God is the one and only source of my good. God is the one and only source of my good. It's not your job. It's not your savings account. It's not your stock account. It's not your brother-in-law, who died and left you $1 million. It's not that. God is the one and only source of your good. Abundance is reality. I'm surrounded by and enmeshed in lavish abundance. I am part of God's infinite abundance. It is reality. It is the greater truth to know that we live in this incredibly abundant world. It is not. I worked in the financial industry for a while, in another lifetime. And they used to talk about zero-sum game. You know what that means? That means if you make $10, I lose $10. It's a perfect balance. But that's not the world we live in. Everybody can be lifted. Everybody can experience that divine abundance. God is meeting my every need at every moment according to my own acceptance. God is meeting my every need according to my own acceptance. Are you willing to accept? Are you in a position where you can sit down and vision what it is that you're ready to have and accept what comes your way? Karen shared with me this wonderful story on Facebook about the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, these 2 bodies of water in the Holy Land. They're all fed by the Jordan River. Picture the Jordan River running from the north to the south. It first empties into the Sea of Galilee, which is really a lake, it's not an ocean. And it's incredibly abundant. There's all sorts of fish, and the fishermen are living around it, or living in it, and fishermen and resorts, and it's just this wonderful, incredible, lively, sparkly place. And then on the bottom of that lake, there's an outflow. So we have an inflow and an outflow. It receives and it gives. Important lesson to come in your prosperity classes. Receiving and giving. But the Jordan River then flows south into the Dead Sea. Flows right into the Dead Sea. And guess what? The Dead Sea has no outflow. It just receives water. It doesn't give. And the Dead Sea is dead. There's no life. It's all salinity. They say it's 9 times saltier than the ocean. My birthright is natural planetary abundance. God's love is constantly abundant and always available. My vision is my awareness. My vision is my awareness of my naturally abundant self. God has magnificent things in store for you. The greatest I can presently accept is there in my new vision. Well, why not expand your vision? My inner guidance will lead me toward the fulfillment of my vision. that inner seed. I love this next line. Every seed knows how to grow and blossom with no direction from me. I don't have to go out to my tomato plants and teach it how to produce a tomato. I don't have to guide the cucumbers that we have in our garden to show them how to produce. All I have to do is plant the seed, create an environment, and then get out of the way. The divine guidance is all that's necessary. The kingdom of heaven is within you, Luke chapter 17. All that you need is within you. It's your responsibility to tap into that. Well, before I leave, there's one last story that I want to share with you. I know that you folks are in the midst of a search for a minister. And I've been here several times in the past, and I got to tell you, this is a spectacular organization. The facility is wonderful, and you all, I've not had any experience other than gorgeous beauty. So, by the way, thank you. And I want to leave you with this story. There was a monastery in some wonderful far-off place. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful place. The abbey was this gorgeous building, and the grounds were well-maintained, acres and acres and acres of lawn that was manicured and flowers and beautiful trees. And over kind of in the lower 40, there was a little hut, like a gardener's hut. It was out of sight, but everybody knew it was there. And about once a week, this rabbi would come and go into that hut, and he would pray. And they all knew that he was there because they could feel his energy, they could feel the vibration of his presence, and they knew that he was including them in his prayers, and they could just sense that he was there. But they left him alone. They rarely crossed paths. And then after a while, what we start to notice is that one of the monks left, maybe another one died, and then another one left to go somewhere else. And ever so slowly, there was a decline in this monastery. The grounds started to get a little shaggy. People didn't come to visit quite as often. They used to have picnics out on the lawn, and that didn't happen quite as often. And the place started to get a little run down, and people really didn't spend that much time working on it. And it just kind of, over the course of years, continued to decline. And pretty soon there were only 2 or 3 monks left, and the abbot. There used to be dozens. Now there was just a few. And they would get together and they would say, what can we do? How do we fix this? How do we create a new, how do we bring energy back in? And nobody knew what to do. So the abbot said, well, I'm going to go visit that rabbi, see if he has any suggestions. So one day they sensed that the rabbi was there, and they went, the abbot took a hike and went down that path and went to that little hut, knocked on the door, and the rabbi answers the door. Hello, can I help you? That's right. Invited him in, and they had some tea. And the abbot explained to the rabbi what was happening, and he wasn't looking for any miracles. He just asked the monk, or asked the rabbi, if there was any suggestions that he might have, and any thoughts that he might have that they could utilize, any help that he might be able to give. And the rabbi thought, he says, gosh, I can pray for you, but we're having the same problem. We're experiencing the same issue at my temple. And they sort of commiserated a little bit and enjoyed their tea and chitted and chatted. And then the abbot got up to leave, and they hugged and parted company. And he was starting to walk down the trail, and just as the rabbi closed the door behind the abbot, he leaned out and said, you know, one of you is the Messiah. And he closed the door. Abbot didn't know what to think. He walked back to the monastery, and he sat down. All the monks gathered around. What did he say? What did he say? And he said, well, he really didn't have anything to tell us. He didn't, there was no grand message of salvation that he had for us. We talked a little bit and had some tea, and then I left. They were kind of disappointed. He said, did you know, he said the strangest thing. He said, as I was walking out the door, he said, one of you is the Messiah. And then he closed the door, and that was it. oh, you should have heard the buzz amongst the monks. Oh, what does that mean? What is he talking about? And they started to talk amongst themselves. I wonder if he means that the abbot is the Messiah, because the abbot's a very learned man. He's been there forever. Maybe he's the Messiah. And then they continued to discuss, and they said, maybe it's Brother Thomas, because Brother Thomas is very studied and learned and loves to help. Maybe he's the Messiah. Maybe it's Brother Bartholomew. No, Bartholomew's a real crab apple. He hates everybody. But you know what Brother Bartholomew will do? If you need any help, he will take the shirt off his back and lay it down for you and help you until you're done with the project. Maybe he's the Messiah. And then they started to think amongst themselves, maybe it's me and I don't even know it. And you know what started to happen? Slowly but surely, that monastery began to come back to life. People would come and visit, and they would volunteer to help spruce the place up. They started to treat each other with love and respect more so than they had before, because after all, you might be the Messiah. They repainted the place. The place began to really start to look sharp. They started to have visitors come back. And you know what? There were even a couple of monks who came and said, you know, I think I'd like to study here. I think I'd like to become a member. And this went on and on and on until the place was again thriving and beautiful and harmonious and healthy and the way it used to be. So, I have a thought. One of you is the Messiah. Might be you. Might be you. Could be you. One of you is the Messiah. Live in peace. Live with God. Namaste.